Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Davin, and I'm here on behalf of Virtual Graffiti. We have a great webinar for you all today from Sophos about protecting your endpoints and servers from ransomware. But first, a little bit about what Virtual Graffiti is and what we do. We are one of the fastest growing IT solutions providers for business, government, and education. Our team has a comprehensive knowledge of all products, ensuring that you will find the right solution to whatever your problem might be. Our team is available to provide timely answers to all your questions on our website. On the bottom of the slide here is our unique link to purchase the Sophos products you will be introduced to today in today's webinar at enterpriseav.com. If you have any questions at all during the webinar, on the right-hand side of your screen should be a panel with a questions drop-down menu. Feel free at any point to drop your questions in there, and at the end of the webinar, we'll do a Q&A. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mike Weaver from Sophos.
Thank you, Davin. I appreciate that. Welcome, everybody. And today, as a title suggests, today we're going to be talking about how to protect your endpoints and servers from ransomware. You know, there's so many vulnerabilities out there, and with the latest type of attacks that we've all heard about, with the latest vulnerability that happened with the Microsoft Exchange servers with Hafnium, what we're going to do is go through and talk to you how Sophos can help protect your endpoints and servers from ransomware as well as other types of vulnerabilities. But we are going to focus on ransomware with this particular session because we know that ransomware is so prevalent out in the industry or out in the world, and we want to make sure that we can do what we can to help stop funding those hackers from being able to make money and profit off of attacking people's servers. So just how prevalent is ransomware? So Sophos, we did a state of ransomware survey in 2020, and 51% of the organizations that responded to that survey said that they were hit by ransomware in the last year. And of that 51%, 73% of those had said that the attack from the cyber criminal succeeded in encrypting their data. And with a ransomware attack, the average cost is over $200,000 to recover from a ransomware attack. The use of different types of attacks to breach inside of your network with ransomware, and as much as we try to teach people, the number one reason is somebody clicked on a file and downloaded it, or they clicked on a link in an email, and so most of the time these are things happening from somebody doing something. But with the proper endpoint protection, regardless of how they tried to do this, we can help protect against those attacks. So what is Sophos' approach to helping to protect against ransomware? Well, we have a three-level approach that we talk about. Is first we start off with protection, and we start off with the world's best protection. Then we migrate, and with our Intercept X product, we have what we call our Intercept X with EDR. EDR, it allows us now visibility into our network. So remember, when we talk about endpoint protection is traditionally considered as being a reactive product, where whenever something, we have it installed on that device, and then when something happens, it reacts to it. Well, with EDR, it now gives us the ability to start doing some proactive hunting inside of our network for any sort of vulnerabilities. And if you don't have that expertise or want that additional help, Sophos does have a team of data scientists where you can choose to use Sophos for what we call our MTR service. And that's where we follow up with our expertise with our 24/7, 365 days a year monitoring service using Sophos Managed Threat and Response, also known as MTR.
What makes Sophos endpoint protection world's best?
Well, great. Thanks for asking that question, Davin. So what makes us world best protection? Every vendor, when you get in front of them, they're going to always tell you they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. Sophos, we actually have all these industry known leaders that do a lot of third-party testing that have done testing with Endpoint and shown that Sophos across the board constantly wins #1, even for having the highest catch rates, lowest amounts of false positives. But Sophos really does have a well-proven endpoint technology, and Sophos has been around since 1985 doing endpoint protection. So how does it make it the world's best endpoint protection? Well, we start with what we've known for forever with the foundation. Then we add in deep learning with some artificial intelligence, add in ransomware protection and exploit protection, and that gives you multiple layers of defense. So these layers of defense in action. So first off, there's delivery. So how do we prevent the ransomware from installing? Well, that's where we try to help to block that delivery from happening through the known anti-exploits that are out there. Then to keep from the execution, if it is able somehow to pass that anti-exploit, the detection there, the delivery, if it is able to get delivered, we want to stop it before it has that opportunity to do any execution. We want to quarantine that ransomware before it runs. And that's where the deep learning engine comes into play. And then lastly, in the event that, something so new, so radical, it's able to bypass, I don't care who the vendor is we're talking about, but ultimately gets to the point where it starts to execute. Well, with Sophos, with our product, we have, if it is able to get past multiple layers, and it does start encryption, we actually have something to help fix that, and that's with Cryptoguard. So what is the protection that we have against the encryption we have against anti-ransomware? Well, we have two things to really help out with that. We have what we call wipe guard, which helps to protect the system information, more specifically the master boot record. So if a hacker is able to change your master boot record, you would not be able to read any data on that hard drive at all. And it's also as part of ransomware, they're going to encrypt all your data files, right? So in the event of, so what Cryptoguard's sole job is to monitor that hard drive and make copies of any encryption request that comes in. We make a copy of that file. So the event of a ransomware attack, when our scanning engines determine that this is an attack, they will kill that process and then tell Cryptoguard to roll those files back.
Hey Meg, so I get that Cryptoguard rolls files back, but why is that so important?
That's a great question. So the reason why that's a great question, really important, is because Sophos is not the only company that can stop a ransomware attack. But the question you really need to ask yourself and to ask your vendor is, if I am hit with a ransomware attack and you stop that attack, what does it take to make me whole again? And what I mean by what does it take to make me whole again? So the way in all this stuff is happening, when a ransomware attack starts to kick off, this all happens within seconds and microseconds, and it starts encrypting files. So until those engines have an opportunity to realize, hey, this is a ransomware attack, and it stops that attack, what Sophos does is, once that attack and recognize that it's an attack, because that Cryptoguard is making snapshots of those files, when we detect that and we stop that ransomware attack, we then tell our scanning engines then tell Cryptoguard to roll the files back, right? So why is that good? Well, think about other types of technologies out there and how they do the same thing that we're doing. So most companies either tell you that you need to now pull out your backup systems, and now you have to search your backup systems for those files that got encrypted, making sure they're getting restored. Or some companies out there use Windows Shadow Copy. Well, that's all well and good, but as we all know, with Windows Shadow Copy, the system default is 4 hours. That means that every 4 hours it's doing like this snapshot. You can change that time, but if you don't, your data could be as much as 4 hours old. Plus, it's Windows Shadow Copy, because what does that mean? It only works on Windows devices. So with Sophos, we have multiple OS support with that. It's a great question, thank you. So there's a list of some of the common exploit examples, and these are the ones that that people know the most. And probably the biggest one we see is credential theft, where attacks come in and they try to gain password information, so any credentials they can do onto a machine, and that then also helps them to now put the ransomware information on that computer. Because like I said, a lot of things are going to help try to block this at the beginning. But really, where most ransomware attacks come in is because somebody did something to allow it to come in. So if we relied just on our endpoint products and we didn't have the human interaction in between, we'd be able to block a lot more things. But because of that human nature, that's why we have these products. And there are several different ones besides the one on that first page. So these are a bunch of list of exploits that I put in here just as a reference. So if you download a copy of this presentation or want to refer to it later, these are the most commonly known exploits and active adversaries and how people gain access into your systems. So let's talk about Intercept X with EDR. Now let's talk about from the endpoint, from the protection, and move into the visibility. So EDR, it starts off with the world's strongest protection. And what we want to do with EDR is we want to add expertise, not head count. We want to give you the ability to do these things for yourself and not keep adding a bunch of head count to keep going and restoring computers and things of that nature. And how we do that is when we look at endpoint protection and we look at EDR systems, there is this benign information that we know that's benign and it's not malicious. And then at the bottom, we have stuff that we know is malicious for sure. And in the middle, we have this, what we call the gray area, referred to as the gap. And with traditional endpoint products or traditional EDR products, they are taking and looking at that big gray area there called the gap. But with Sophos, with our Intercept X product and being advanced that it is, we can now take and narrow down that gap because our product is so good at being able to determine what is good and what's bad, that we are able to know more of that stuff that's benign and more of that stuff that's malicious. So what we're actually looking for from an EDR perspective, we're looking for less things, right? So Intercept X helps narrow the amount of things that I need to investigate.
Why would a smaller amount of things to investigate be an advantage?
Good question. So as I was saying, with traditional EDR products, think about this. So when you have traditional other EDR products from other manufacturers, since they don't have the expertise of the endpoint and the history that we have, because remember, Sophos has been around as an endpoint vendor since 1985. So when you have other vendors that are just doing just straight EDR, they have to sift through all this information. So when you log into your console, you may see 100 different things that you now have to follow up with. Well, since Intercept X is so good at being able to help narrow that gap down, Intercept X may only have 10 things that you have to look at when you log into your console or when you get any notices. So it really helps to reduce the amount of things that you have to look through to determine, hey, is this really bad or is this really good? And as a result of that, it really helps to answer those critical IT and security questions. So it really helps with IT operations and threat hunting. So threat hunting is where we're now proactively looking for anything that could potentially be a vulnerability. How that kind of looks from an IT operations perspective, if somebody's complaining of why a machine is running slow, you can take a look through our EDR and through our querying capabilities to find out what's going on that machine. Is it pending a reboot? You can check for other things. Are there programs running on that machine that should be removed? You can take an inventory of types of applications that are on that device. Then from a threat hunting capabilities, we can do things like show all the processes that have recently been modified with files or registry keys, or look for unusual login attempts, or look for tools, well-known tools that are used on the network, but are being used more frequently than what you would normally see. As an example, like PowerShell. PowerShell is a very is a widely used tool within networks. But if we see a lot of it being used a lot, or we see that PowerShell is being used to transfer information out of a network, that's not what it's normally used for. Those are all the kind of things that we can look for when we start using EDR and proactively hunting our network. So it gives us the ability to ask, answer, and respond. So with Live Discover, we have the ability to do these QL queries to be able to search on all the endpoints that we're monitoring, with all the endpoints and servers in your network. And we can actually go back up to 90 days worth of live and historical data. So it gives us the ability to dive deep down in your network to really see where there might be some potential vulnerabilities or something that traditional endpoint doesn't pick up, but it looks very suspicious. And then as a result of that, be able to respond if there is a device that maybe has some sort of application on that it shouldn't be there, or maybe it's pending a reboot to finish an update. Live response allows us to remotely connect over to a device. It gives us a command line interface and allows us to do things that we can do from a command line to remediate that machine to help get it back to a good state. And once we move from the visibility, let's go into expertise. And the expertise phase is that if you would like some help with monitoring your network and doing these kind of threat huntings and stuff like that, that's where Sophos has our MTR service, or Managed Threat and Response. And as part of that survey that I mentioned earlier, 81% of those surveys said that they find it really hard to find and retain skilled IT professionals. And 54% of them said it's a significant challenge, while 27% of them said it was their biggest challenge. So being able to hire the IT staff that knows how to do threat hunting and knows how to do these kind of things, that can be the big challenge. So with Expert Threat Response, with our MTR service, it's a 24/7 human-led threat hunting. So we have a team of data scientists that are looking through your network, looking for suspicious activity, not just detections. And then once we determine something, we actually have the ability to actually take action. Where a lot of other vendors might stop at just notification, we actually have the ability to take action, and we can do that action as a joint conversation where we get on the phone with you and help you to remediate whatever it is that we're finding. Or if let's say it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and you just want Sophos to do whatever it needs necessary to fix whatever is happening, you can authorize us to take action for you. But the main thing I want to make sure that everybody is aware here is that when using Sophos, our MTR service, we don't just stop at notification. We actually take action and help you to neutralize those threats and to get your network back into a safe state. So what our MTR team does is they proactively hunt and validate potential threats and incidents inside your network. They look for the appropriate business context for valid threats. And as I mentioned before, we actually then have the ability to take action we want to disrupt, contain, and neutralize those threats, and that's by taking action. And once again, whether it's a co-conversation with you and we're walking through together to fix that, or you authorize us to just do that on your behalf. So a lot of times people ask, well, what if I have a customer that's currently under attack? Well, if you're currently under attack, Sophos has a service called our Rapid Response. And with Sophos Rapid Response, this remote incident, it is a 24/7 team as well. You'd get a dedicated point of contact. It's a 45-day fixed cost service. So within that 45-day, you're going to get us to neutralize that for you, and we're going to continue using our MTR service, for 45 days to continue to monitor your network to make sure that nothing else happens within that. And then after that 45 days, it's very easy for you to transition to become a full-time MTR customer at that point. So how fast does all this happen? Well, once you contact us, because we can have you onboarded within hours, and a majority of our customers are triaged within 48 hours. And then, as I mentioned, we continue to monitor your network for that 45 days. And after that 45 days, we would hope that you would want to continue with that service and use our MTR Advanced service. So to kind of break it down from a protection standpoint, that's where we're going to look at our Intercept X Advanced. Intercept X Advanced will be just your level of protection. When you want to start getting into detection and response, if you want to do it yourself and do it with our product only, that's going to be our EDR product. And if you want somebody to help you with that, it's a service, that's our MTR service. And if you're actually during an incident under a current attack, it's a service, and we have our Sophos Rapid Response. But I think at this point, everybody's probably tired to listen to me just talk and look at PowerPoint. So let's take and migrate over, and let's take a look at the actual product. So let's just do a demo. Let's step in here and do a demo. And Dan, if you can just verify that you are able to see my Sophos Central Platform screen, I would greatly appreciate that. Okay, I'm just going to assume that you can see that. So what we're looking at here is our Sophos Central dashboard. Now, one of the things that I wanted to take the time and show you is with that EDR and that threat hunting capability. So with Sophos, when you're using our Intercept X Advanced with EDR, whenever we discover something, we do these things, we create what they call these threat cases. The threat case shows, it gives you the ability to click and look to see what we saw, what we caught, and what we actually did. So as an example, I'll click on one of these, and this is a threat case. So this means this is something that actually happened. And in this case, across the top, I get a brief little description of what happened. It shows me the desktop that it happened on, the IP address they were using, what the root cause. In this case, it was Microsoft Edge, not to pick on Microsoft again. Could have been Chrome, Firefox, whatever browser, but in this case, this user was using Microsoft Edge, and that's where it started. And so it looks here, what was actually caught was this temp file that was downloaded. We detected it and we cleaned it. As we move down the screen, you'll notice here that it says detection name, and that it has this, that it's blue and gives me this finger, not that kind of finger you're thinking of, but this one that I can click on. So as I clicked on it, it takes me out to Sophos Labs to give me more information on what the service, what that lockdown vulnerability is. A little more information of where it happened. So once again, the machine name, but now it tells me who that machine belongs to and when it all happened. And as suggested next steps, things it allows me to do is I can actually click to isolate this device. And when I isolate the device, it will actually keep it from being able to traverse through other parts of the network, as well as will not allow it to surf the web. It will be able to access the internet, but only the Sophos Central platform that we're looking at here for remediation. And then if I want to, I can also, even though as I mentioned up here that we're showing that we detected it, we cleaned it, but maybe as best security practice is you want to click to scan the device. Or for this particular type of thing, maybe I want to run a live query, and we're going to look to see what a live query is in just a few moments. But as I scroll down, I know this graphic is really small, but I wanted to show you just how much when we look at a threat from the time that it happens till the time it's caught and stopped, what we call the attack chain. This is the attack chain. And let me zoom in so you can actually see what this looks like. So as we mentioned before, what started this, and you can see by the red dot there, was Microsoft Edge. And when this vulnerability came in, you can see all these things that actually spawned off and happened since then. And this is a completely customizable screen. So I can click here and I can move things around. So if I want to maybe because something's a little harder to read, whatever it may be, you want to follow all the arrows. But just to kind of give you a brief little look real quick. So once this happened, look what happened in the background. It spawned off approximately, I just counted approximately close to 20 different Edge windows in the background. And it did a lot of things here. So in any one of these bubbles I can click on, here it did 32 file reads. So when I click here, it's going to now show me these files over here on the right-hand side that was actually read. And any one of these other things too, whether it be registry keys. And if I want to really narrow down and focus on something specific, I can uncheck these boxes. So maybe I just want to look at maybe any network connections that were there. So you can see that here that had some 17 URL accesses, and there they are there, as well as here it had 8 IP addresses that are reached out to. So I'm going to copy these IP addresses because I'm going to show you the power that we have with EDR and our threat hunting capabilities. So I'm going to turn on these back on again just so we can see the whole screen again. And that's part of what we call the forensic snap, the forensics of this. So the forensics from the time that it happened till the time that it was over, that entire attack chain, and I can actually click here to create a snapshot, a forensic snapshot of this screen image here. Up next to analyze, you'll also notice that it says case record. So when I click on case record, this actually details what's going on with this. So first off, because Sophos recognized it, or they caught this particular vulnerability, we're going to automatically create a case for you. And then what I did is, I clicked on that scan the device button up here and automatically added this entry in here for me. And you'll see a couple other entries here, and some of them don't really make sense. But the whole point is, in this space right here, this is where I can add additional notes to this case. And when I add the comments, this now gets added to this case. So if I ever have to divulge, that I had some sort of compromise within my network, not only can I show all the information with that forensic snapshot, but it can also show them the case record of everything that I had done to help resolve or to take that a step further. As I scroll down the rest of the screen, you will see that the next thing I see is a listing, and it says 1 of 10 of 1,070. So 1,070 things in all that happened as part of this attack chain. And next to this create a forensic snapshot, you'll see that I have this export to CSV. So I have that as well that I can use to save and retain information along the way with my if I had to divulge that I ever got compromised in the future. Now, threat searches. So I'm going to click on threat searches on the left-hand navigation bar, and as I mentioned before, I can actually proactively search now. Now, this I copied those IP addresses from something that was actually caught, and I can do that by pasting in those IP addresses that I saw before, and I'm going to go out and search. Now, I'm using a demo account here where I'm basically monitoring, family members. So I have only like 10 devices here, so I don't have anybody else that reached out to that actual same IP addresses. But in the event that it did, I'd have a device name listed here, and I can see, what was found, and it would actually give me the option that I can click on a device. I can isolate that device from here, and if there was anything caught, you would see another button that shows up here that says clean and block. So cleaning those machines that I had there and now block that content from any other machine, from entering any other machine, because I would now update all my devices as that to make sure that as a blocked item. So once again, with threat searches, I had the ability that I can search 256 file hashes, file names, IP addresses, domains, and command line. And as I mentioned, the IP addresses that I pasted in there before, those were a result of me actually searching for those IP addresses. But I can actually be proactive, and I can do things like I can actually come over here and let's keyword FBI's security warning with file hash. So we're going to do that, and let's say I'm just going to click on this first one. So as an example, you can actually subscribe to the FBI and get security warnings. And with a security warning, this is an example of a security warning. And this happened to be on the Deep Panda 1 vulnerability. But as I scroll down, it gives me all the information about it, what type of vulnerability it is, what kind of files are being used. And as I keep scrolling, you'll see that eventually it will tell me different files that are part of this. So in this case, here's a file. It gives me the file hash, so I can actually copy this file hash. So once again, remember those first IP addresses that I came over here and I pasted in here were as a result of something being caught on my network. But once again, as an example, if you were to subscribe to the FBI security warnings, the security warning comes out, you can now look to see what they have, and I can come over and proactively search my network. So nothing has come up yet, but because they put that warning out, I can now come over here and I can look to see if any of my machines have actually reached out and got that file somehow downloaded on their machine. Because remember, a lot of times some vulnerabilities are they are time delayed to keep from being discovered. So we can actually go out now and proactively search that network. So once again, what I did here was I just took an FBI security warning, I copied a file hash, and I came back over to my environment and I searched just to see if there was anything out there, okay? But now the real power of searching with what we have with our Sophos is EDR product is our Live Discover. And with Live Discover, we are doing SQL queries, and it is so flexible. We have 190 different queries that you can actually query on, as well as you can create your own or even edit the current queries that we have. So I'm going to do a couple here just to show you what this looks like. And one of the ones I'm going to do is, only because I know from a time perspective, it's pretty quick. I'm going to run this hardware and operating system detail. So what this is going to do is it's going to give me a list of the hardware and operating system for some machines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to pick some of my machines here to get some results. And let me just pick a couple machines that I know are kind of local to me that'll get some quick results. So with this, what we're going to do now is I'm going to actually go out and I'm going to now run this query. So let me hide this little screen here so we don't have to keep looking at all the machines. So now I'm going to run the query, and you can see right here that it is a SQL query. And while that's running, I can choose to edit this query. So if I wanted to add any additional information that I wanted to search for, I can do that and save it and then run that query. But here's the result. Two of them have come back so far. And you can see here that the machine names, the host names, what CPU is on there. You can also see the amount of physical memory, who's the hardware vendors. In this case, one's a Dell machine, one's an HP machine, the type of machine that it is. You can also see that one is running, you can see here, Windows 10 Pro, one's running Windows 10 Home, which OS version of that, as well as which build. So it has the ability to give me some very, very detailed information. And I can do all sorts of things. So let me come back up here. And let's say that, I've been seeing some weird things on my network, some weird activity going out to the internet. So I can click over here. I'm going to click on network. And I want to click on one that is it's going to actually show me processes that are running on a device that have an open network connection. So I'm going to click here. And once again, if I wanted to, I could edit this myself to make any changes, or maybe some information I don't really want to see. I'm going to go to click and run the query. And as it's running this query, what it's going to do is it's now going to go out and look at all the processes running on each individual machine. And as you can see here, it comes back and it tells me on the machine what the process ID is that is running, the path that's running that process ID, the local port that I'm using, the remote address, where out in the world, where on the internet it's actually connecting to. So here's the actual IP address, and it shows me the port that it has open that it's using for that particular process, for whatever I have open out to the network. But you can see the kind of detailed information and when the forensics or the information I can see to help really search my network for different things inside. Now, there's lots of ways you can do these kind of queries. As I mentioned, you can actually, you can create your own query. And to do that, we actually have one. I'm just going to type in table here, where I can actually come and look at the table schema. So if I want to, I could run this and it would actually now give me the list of every single field that I can actually search from. And remember, this is going out and now searching across all my endpoints. So all those endpoints, and this is data that I can go up to 90 days back. So I have, not only can I do the live queries and query that endpoint as it stands at this moment, like we saw with the processes the current processes running on that machine with open network connections. But I can do all that through here and search. And with the table schema, then I have the ability to create, as many queries that you can think of, depending on whatever it is you're looking for. So it helps me to really take a dive down deep and really look inside of my network to see what's going on. And as I mentioned before, we talked about EDR, and I also mentioned on that slide we had XDR, which stands for extended detection and response. And with that, we have data lakes. And so as part of this information that we're collecting it and putting it into a data lake so that you can actually query all this information to help look for threat searches on your network. Now, once I do a search for anything, so let's go back to, let's run that network or process with open network connections again. So I'm going to run this process again. I'm going to run the query. And once we get some results here, let's say that with the result coming back that we just don't understand, we're not sure what that is, and we want to do further investigation. So right from here, I can actually click on this device, and it takes me to that device management. So you can see that this is a PC, this device, and once we discover that there's a machine and there's something going on with it, whether I need to maybe uninstall some software, maybe there's software running on it that shouldn't be there, and that's how I discovered it, because of that, looking for any, all processes running on that machine that has an open network connection. Well, I can click here and do what we call live response. So this is now going to allow me to connect to that device. And especially with the pandemic going on, think about how many people are working remotely that I now need to reach out to them and do something to their machine. Well, what I can do is, so I can look, and let's say that this particular machine, excuse me, let's say this particular machine, maybe it's pending a, it's pending a reboot. So I can connect to this device, and as I connect to this device, I did not have to, start a web session, or I didn't have to install any of those, known tools to attach you to somebody's device, like log me in or go to my PC as an example, any one of those things. But what it's doing now is it's actually making that connection out to that desktop for me. And you see it gives me command line interface. So that helps with, regardless whether it's a Windows device, Mac device, it gives me that command line. And as you see here, it tells me, the IP address that that's currently using. So as I'm sure everybody's familiar with the IP config command, the IP config allows me to look at my IP addresses that I'm using. So as I hit enter, you see that I am truly attached to this device using that IP. It's using that IP address. I can do things. Anything I do, I can change directories. I can search through directories. I can delete files if I needed to, or in this case, remember we talked about a reboot. So I could, issue the, the shutdown command, and with, restart. And now when I issue that command, it's now going to do a restart for this device. So it gives me that capability of attaching to a device and being able to do whatever I need to do from a command line perspective to help remediate that machine. And then when I'm done is simply click on End Session, which then takes me back to my Sophos Central platform. And now that I'm back over to my system, that machine hopefully shows back up as green, that it's not showing that it's in a compromised state, and therefore back with my network. So with that, that's what I wanted to show everybody today. What I'm going to do is now, Davin, if we can open it up, if we have any questions that anybody has submitted into the chat session while we were doing this, I'll be happy to field any questions that we may have. So Davin, if there's any questions, if you want to read them off to me, we'll be happy to answer any questions that we have. And once again, if you have a question, you can type it into the chat session in your control panel for the GoToMeeting session. Davin, have you had any questions that come up?
Yeah, sir. We do have a few, but first I want to thank you for that presentation. That was amazing and very in-depth. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
First up, we have one question. What is the main difference between EDR, MTR, and RR?
Okay, great question. So it all comes down to, and let me just go back to, this will be easy to answer with the PowerPoint slide. So because I actually have this all in one. So as we come back, if you recall this slide here, so the best way to explain it is, so the difference between EDR, MTR, and RR, or rapid response. So EDR, endpoint detection and response, MTR, managed threat response, RR for rapid response. So basically it breaks down to like this. If you want to do all these everything I've been showing you, if you want to do this yourself, you have the capability of doing that through our EDR product. And with the XDR, that just means now it gives us the data lakes to store more information. But to do it yourself, that would be the EDR. If you want somebody to do this threat hunting and monitoring for you, that is our MTR service. Now, understand this, that if you use our MTR service, it does come with our Intercept X Advanced with EDR and XDR. So it does include the actual endpoint, because in order for our MTR service to work, we need that endpoint, we need that agent on that endpoint to be able to look at that endpoint to do these kind of things. So what that means for you is, not only do you have our MTR service that's monitoring this for you 24/7, but it also gives you the ability, because remember, since it does require our Intercept X Advanced with EDR agent on each endpoint, you still have the ability on your own that you can still do some of your own threat hunting if you want. You don't have to, but you can if you'd like to do that. But just know that with our MTR service, you have our team of data scientists in the background located at different NOC centers around the world that are helping to monitor your network 24/7, 365 days a year. And that with our MTR service, once we do find, if we do, or once we do, I should say, that's where then we can actually then actually do remediation with you. We can actually act and help you to resolve those issues. And then rapid response, or RR, that is for those that are actually currently under attack. So if you're currently under attack, you have a ransomware or any other type of attack, and you're just not sure how to clean up your network, you're not sure what to do, and you don't want to, last thing that anybody in the IT department wants to do is to go re-image every machine that they have. So with our rapid response, we're going to, we're going to get you up and running with our endpoint product on your devices. We're gonna help to triage you, and that's usually done within 48 hours. And with the rapid response service, remember that's a flat cost. It is based off of number of devices, but it is a flat fixed cost. It is for 45 days. So once we do all the triage and we get you, back to a good safe state, we continue to monitor your network for 45 days. After that 45 days, you're free to use any of, to choose to subscribe to use any of our endpoint products. But it does make it nice and easy for you to migrate over to the MTR service since you're already using it already. I know it's long-dated, but that's all of them in detail.
Awesome, thanks. Next up, we have a bit of a two-part question. Is there a matrix page comparing the Sophos AV products and options? When renewing on 3-year terms, what is the best way to deal with the product changes during the term?
Okay, can you repeat the first part of the question? I missed the first part.
Yeah. Is there a matrix page comparing the Sophos AV products and options?
Yes, okay. And then I did hear about it when it comes time for renewal. So first off, if you go to sophos.com and you click on our endpoint protection, there is a matrix chart there, as well as the ability for you to download what we call our endpoint matrix license guide, which then shows in detail the differences between all the different products that we have. Now, as we come out with new products, as an example, like MTR or EDR or rapid response, and you're in the middle of, you currently have a term license and it's 3 years, and you really like the EDR feature, you do not have to wait till renewal time in order to take advantage of these or to upgrade to some of these new features. At any time you have any product from Sophos, you can do what we call a midterm upgrade, which would allow you to upgrade to any of these new features. It takes them for and looks at any credit you have left for any of your current services that you're running, and gives you complete credit for that, and then gives you a price of what it would be to upgrade to that new feature. And once again, you do not, and if you have a term service, you never have to wait for to take advantage of any of these. You can upgrade at any time. You do not have to wait for renewal.
Awesome. Next up, how is Sophos Endpoint licensed?
Great question. So Sophos Endpoint is licensed by the number of users and devices you want to protect. So if you have 100 users, it's a 100 user license. That's very easy.
All right, simple enough. How long is a threat case viewable?
Great question. The threat cases are retained inside of our system for 90 days. That's why we give you the ability to do that forensic snapshot and to download all the components that were touched. Remember the one that I showed, it was 1,070 items in all. That all can be exported to a CSV, so you can retain for whatever period of time that you need to retain it. But by default, our system default for a threat case stays in your console for 90 days.
Cool. If you have the XG firewall, do you auto get email protection?
That's a good question. So our firewall product lines do have the ability to act as an anti-spam service as well. We have that capability built into the firewall, but it does require a subscription. You can either choose to subscribe to that a la carte, or the main differences between the types of service, the main bundles we have for our XG is what we call our Enterprise Guard or Full Guard. Enterprise Guard gives you all the security services you need to do all your normal day-to-day firewall activities and protection on your firewall. What Full Guard adds for you is it adds that email capability, so it adds the ability for you, or turns on that email service, as well as it then adds what we call web server protection, not web content, meaning that the ability to control what websites people can look at, that's web control. But web server protection is if you're hosting an actual web server sitting behind your firewall, you know, adds protection to do things like web application firewall. So if you're doing things like collecting credit card payments, you would, and to be PCI compliant, you need, and you're hosting your own web server sitting behind your firewall, you need to be doing web application firewall to protect that server from people attaching to it and potentially getting any credit card numbers, as an example. Good question.
Perfect. Last question. Does Cryptoguard encrypt your hard drive or back up your drive?
I'm sorry, Peter, so does Cryptoguard do what?
Does Cryptoguard encrypt your hard drive or back up your drive?
Oh, that's a great question. So what Cryptoguard does is, Cryptoguard, while it's on your device, it is sitting there monitoring and looking for any encryption requests. So if a ransomware attack is able to somehow kick off, as it goes to, we all know ransomware is trying to encrypt all your files and hold you ransom to pay the fee to unlock everything, right? So at Cryptoguard, its sole job is to monitor for any of those encryption requests. When it sees an encryption request, it only backs up the file that's being requested to be encrypted. So make sure we're all on the same page here, and what probably the question they're asking is, we are not a backup company. We are not backing up your whole entire hard drive, because remember, we're backing this up. Cryptoguard backs this up to your local hard drive space. Now, in all the years that I've been with Sophos and even prior to that, I've never ever once heard of any hard drive ever filling up when using our Intercept X Advanced product, because our Intercept X Advanced product, whether it be Intercept X Advanced or Intercept X with EDR, Cryptoguard, when it does its job, and with the scanning engines that we have, the ability for it to catch it so quickly stops that process, and then those engines tell Cryptoguard to roll those files back. So we're only encrypting the files that are being requested to be encrypted. Okay.
Okay, awesome. We actually got one more question in.
Sure.
Any roadmap plans to offer patch management?
Patch management. At this point in time, I don't know if we're planning on bringing that to our cloud-based platform. When we had our on-premise solution, we did have we had the ability to look for patches, and we can look for patches today, but we didn't actually do patch update itself. So if the question is if we're going to do patch updates, we don't do patch updates, and I don't know that. I mean, we may do that in the future, but at this point we don't. But we do have the ability, even with our EDR, that we can actually look for certain types of patches of what's on a machine through our EDR searches. But we don't actually do patch management as far as actually applying the patches.
Okay, the question keeps rolling in. I like it. We have another one. I have Intercept X, but not Advanced. Is Cryptoguard included?
Any product that's Intercept X has Cryptoguard. So there's 4 main components of Intercept X. With Intercept X, regardless which product you're using from us, if you have Intercept X, you're going to get our machine learning scanning engine, which helps to protect you against zero-day vulnerabilities and against ransomware and stuff like that. So it gets our deep learning machine learning engine. It comes with the Cryptoguard, and we already explained what Cryptoguard does. It also comes with what we call Sophos Clean, which Sophos Clean is just the component that actually cleans up the remnants of those files when it does detect something. And then the fourth part of that is those threat cases. So that's where the threat cases come into play. So those are all the 4 main components that are part of Intercept X, and any Intercept X product has those same 4 main components.
Awesome. I think that about does it for the Q&A session. If any of you think of any other questions after the webinar, we will be sending out an email following up, and you are welcome to respond with any questions you might have, and we'll get back to you. Mike, thank you again.
Sure, no problem.
Back up here. Once again, if you go to the link at the bottom of the page here, Enterprise AV, you can purchase any product you heard about today. And with that, I want to thank you all for coming, and have a great rest of your day.